Welcome to TechCrunch, a place where we learn and earn technical skills in the most efficient way. Let's make coding fun. All about Java interface. Today we are going to present you a live informative session about interface with syntaxes and live implementation with lots of examples in Java. So what is an interface? Just like a class, an interface in a Java programming language is an abstract type that is used to specify a behavior that classes must implement. In the simple words, if you say we have a class, similarly we have an interface, and that interface can have methods and variables, but the methods are only declared by default as an abstract type. Now, what do you mean by abstract type? It's just that it has a declaration, not the definition. Now, what do you mean by definition? It's like an implementation. So in simple words, an interface is just like a class, but the class has abstract type method which has no implementation. It's just a declaration. To declare an interface, we have a keyword called interface, and when we override or extend that particular interface to a class, we use implements. Now you can see that in syntax here, interface is a keyword, interface name, and within these bracket, you can mention and declare all kind of constant fields, methods that are abstract by default as mentioned. Now to understand it in detail, the concept behind the interface is sometimes you have such type of software application which is being used many places in a same way. For example, you have a video game called Minesweeper or Tic-Tac-Toe or Tetris game. And they have some functionality which are common like play, new game, stop, how much is the score, and pause. So we have an interface called video game, and that particular interface video game has the same method declaration. Point to be noted here is just a declaration. There is no definition. As you can see, there is no implementation. It's just a declaration. So what you can do when you have a Minesweeper, in Minesweeper class, you can implement this particular interface and override play method according to the rules of the Minesweeper, because that will be different. Similarly, for the tic-tac-toe, there will be different rules or instructions. So for that, you can override this play method in the tic-tac-toe class, which is actually implemented from the video game interface. Similarly for the Tetris game. So as many as you have the video games, you can simply implement and override these methods in your typical type of Java class for that particular video game. To generalize and reuse those methods is the best use for the interface. Now when we say extending or overriding method, how is it possible? We have a parent class. In inheritance, we have seen when we have a parent class and we create a child class, what we need to do, we need to extend that class and get those methods and improvise it and add some more content as per the child class requirement. Now, similarly, we have the interface. You can also extend interface to interface. So there are some methods are already there in the parent interface that you can include it in your child interface and add more interface. So this is how we can extend from interface to interface. Now, what will happen if you want to override and have the methods declared in an interface and use it in a class? We use implements keyword. So as you can see here, this is my implements keyword. What is happening here? Minesweeper class is taking the method declared in video game interface and overriding those methods in this class as per this requirement of this, and you can say as per the rules of this game. So this is the basic concept behind an interface. If you try to understand with the example, what we need to do, we need to have a generalized form that can be reused as per the requirement. Now, to understand it more in detail, you can take a look at the example of clock. Now, there are several types of clock: analog clock, alarm clock, digital clock, or any type of clock on any device, mobile, laptop, desktop, web application has same functionality. Sometimes you need to use international clock, which has a different times zones mentioned. Now, all these clock has the same functionality. They are showing you the timing, the AM, PM, and night, and different types of formats of the time zone. So that's what the functionality. This is what the example of an interface. Similarly, you have an audio player. Now, an audio player, we have the same functionality: play, stop, pause, resume, playlist, add song, exit. Now, all these functionalities, all these methods and that can be declared in an audio player interface and can be used in different types of video player class, like a media player class or VLC player class or iTunes player class, but they can use their own definition. For example, iTunes want to support MOV type of file, VLC wanted to support MP4 type of file, so they have their definition and implementation as per their requirement. So this is what the understanding of the interfaces. Now, when we say about the interfaces, there are some set of rules we need to make sure we are following, because interfaces are critical, but they are very efficient if you use it appropriately. So like abstract classes, interface cannot be used to create objects. Now, to understand an abstract class, we'll see that in later in the session. We are going to come up with the abstract classes in detail. But to understand it now, interfaces cannot be used to create object, because interfaces are just like a class, but they are not class. So you won't be able to create an object. The reason behind you cannot create an object is interfaces just have the declaration. They do not have the implementation. So what will happen if you try to create an object? The object will pick the method, but they cannot do any functionality. So for that, they need to ultimately go back to the class where it is defined, where we are going to implement that interface. So this is the reason. To understand the rules is easy to understand the interfaces instead of memorizing these rules. So make sure you understand why these rules are set it up. So interfaces cannot be used to create an object because they don't have the definition. Interface methods do not have a body. The body is provided by the implement class. Interface methods do not have implementation. On implementation of an interface, you must override all of its methods. Now, this is interesting. When we actually implement an interface in a class, you make sure you are overriding all of its methods. So what happened when we have a parent class and we extend that parent class to a child class? We try to pick the few of the features and we can customize our classes. But in case of interface, they already have the declaration. They don't have the implementation. So you have to override all of its methods so that you can implement it according to your requirement. Interfaces methods are by default abstract and public. The reason interface methods has to be open for entire package, so their visibility has to be very precise. Interface attributes are by default public, static, and final. An interface cannot contain a constructor as it cannot be used to create an object. To implement multiple interfaces, you can use it separated by them with a comma operator. So these are the set of rules you understand, and instead of memorizing it, and you will be more, if you do the more practice about it, you will be very comfortable to use interfaces appropriately. So every rules has a specific reason. All you need to understand instead of memorizing. That's more important. Now let's take a look at the abstract classes. In the beginning of the interfaces sessions, we have just mentioned about the abstract class, or we have seen about a little bit on about abstraction. So what is actually an abstract class do? An abstract class is a class that is declared as an abstract, of course, as a keyword. But what is the use? It may or may not include the abstract methods. That's the one of the behavior of these types of classes. But when we say about abstract classes, that means the method has a implementation, and these are just like a regular class, but they have the abstract method. Abstract method means you have a method which is not defined, which is not implemented, and there are some method which is implemented too, or they are open to override and implemented either. So when we have an abstract class, that means we have an abstract method inside that class, and it is a subclass. The subclass usually provide implementations for all the abstract method defined in its parent class. So for example, if you see, we have a class. Instead of public class, it is an abstract type of class. That means this class has an abstract type of method. Now, abstract type of method is defined. It is not implemented. Now, when we extend this type of class, you can implement it with respect to your requirement. Suppose I have a message type of abstract class that has a hello method and declared, and we have defined it for the different type of classes like Japan, or you can make it for Mexico and mention as a system like Ola, and different countries has their different messages and their interpretation. So these type of example like a language translator, these type of application used best to understand and more if use the abstract class type of abstraction. So you can see the point is you have a abstract class, you have a method definition which is defined as an abstract type. Now you can rewrite and override those methods and implement it as per your requirement. For Japan class, you say sayonara, and for Mexico, you can say hola, and for different countries, USA, you can mention hello. So this is way you can implement the different type of implementation on the same method declaration. So this is one of the abstract class. Now there are some set of rules with abstract class too. An abstract class must be declared with an abstract keyword. As we know, it can have abstract and non-abstract methods. So it's independent kind of. It is not so precise. It's not so specific about the abstraction. It cannot instantiate it. The reason they have some abstract type of method which is not defined. So when we create an object and we try to reach that method, it does not define it anyway, has to go to that method where it is implemented. So it can have constructors in static methods also, and it can have final methods which will force the subclass not to change the body of the method. So all these sets of rules for interface and abstract class are of some reason. So all you need to practice to understand the concept, and that will help you to make comfortable and use it appropriately. Abstract versus interface. The most important and confusing thing to understand is what is the difference between the abstract class and an interface. So you can see abstract class can have abstract and non-abstract method as we discussed, but interface can only have abstract type of methods. Since Java 8, it can have default and static method also. Abstract class does not support multiple inheritance. That means we cannot extend more than one classes. Interface support multiple inheritance. That means you can implement more than one interfaces in a class using comma operator. That's what we have seen. Abstract class can have final, non-final, static and non-static variable, whereas an interface has only static and final variable. Abstract class can provide the implementation of interface, and interface cannot provide the implementation of abstract class. Now to understand this is really tricky, since the abstract class can have abstract and non-abstract type of method. So that is possible for an abstract class to provide an implementation of interface. But in case of interface, it does not have non-abstract type of method. That's very specific. So interface is very precise and specific about the abstract type of method. Cannot provide the implementation of abstract class. Abstract class can extend another Java class and implement multiple Java interfaces. Whereas an interface can be implemented using keyword implements and extend another Java interfaces. So extending and implementing with respect to the classes to classes, we have seen it is used to extend. In case of implement to in case of interface to interface, we use extend. But when we have to extend an interface in a class, we use implement keyword, and we can do it for more than one. A Java abstract class can have class members like private, protected, whereas members of Java interface are only by default specified as public. Abstract class achieve partial abstraction 0 to 100, whereas interface achieves fully abstraction 100. Why it is so? There is a reason behind this. Achieve partial abstraction and fully abstraction means, since we have an option of keeping our classes abstract class with an abstract method or non-abstract method, but in interface it only contains an abstract type of method, so that makes him 100% abstraction. Now let's take a look at the demonstration. For example, you have a calculator tool, and this calculator application has addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. Now, simple calculator has these functionality. In case of scientific calculator, you have the same functionality, but there is one more method to be added. It's called percentage. And that is possible by using these method. Overriding using abstract method. So what you can do, you can practice by using it as an abstract class or as an interface. But for now, let's take a look at the live demonstration about the interface for calculator application. So this is my Eclipse IDE, and here I'm going to have my project. Interface demo. And in this interface demo, I'm going to have my class. This is my source class, and here I'm going to have my class and interface and package my app. I can make it in and using my main method. In one step, I can do it, all the three things together. Now for interface demo, this is a regular public class which has a main method. Now inside this package, I'll create one interface. So creating an interface, I'm going to give a name calculator. And modifiers are public type, extended interface. We don't have anything right now, so we'll do it later. In closing type, there's nothing as such. Now let's finish it. To make a simple calculator interface, what I did, I need to have addition, void, subtraction method, void, multiplication method over declaration, and division. So these are my methods. For more specific you want, you can have a declaration like int argument. You can pass the arguments, and based on that you can use it in the extended interface. Now this interface has to be implemented in my this class. So implements interface, right? Add unimplemented method. So this is automatically done. You see, I just added this interface, and they are asking for overriding these methods. So what I can do, int a equals to 9. I'm just making a simple one for that. We can do it later. 9 plus 4, or a plus b कर दो ना, a plus b. That's it. So this is my implementation of overridden methods of my interface. For subtraction, now we have to have our main. Okay, it is inside our main method. We need to call these methods in our main method. So first we create an object, interface demo. So we are not creating an object of an interface. We are creating an object of a public class which is implemented through the calculator interface. Now this is interface demo dot addition method. So this is a simple example of interface to understand concept of interface. It's building. So you see, this is my execution of my simple calculator class. Now similarly, what you can do, you can have another class of scientific calculator and add the percentage and create another method and just like this. So this is what the live demonstration and implementation of interfaces in Java. Practice project for homework. What you can do, you can try to implement the abstract classes and override the methods for scientific calculator in the same way. All you need to do is you need to add one more method called percentage and override those methods in an abstract, overriding those using abstract methods. For any questions and assistance needed, please feel free to contact techranch2019@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more upcoming interesting and informative sessions about Java and Java-based application development. Let's make coding fun. Thank you.